The glass doors of the Lakeshore Grand Hotel burst open just as a weary man stepped inside, holding a small worn suitcase and a sleeping child balanced carefully on his shoulder. The morning sunlight poured through the lobby like a spotlight on a stage, catching every polished surface, every marble edge, every crystal chandelier that screamed wealth without saying a word. In that same moment, everything about the man seemed out of place: his faded jacket, the tired circles under his eyes, the way he hesitated as if even breathing too loudly might cost him something. The child shifted slightly, a soft whimper escaping, and the father tightened his hold as though the world itself might try to take the boy away. The receptionist's eyes narrowed before the man even reached the counter. 2 security guards exchanged a glance that didn't need words. Within minutes, the atmosphere turned sharp, cold, and unwelcoming. The man tried to explain that he had a reservation, that he only needed a room for a short while, that he could pay later if necessary, but his voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had been fighting life for too long. It didn't matter. Judgment had already been delivered without a trial. The boy stirred again, and the father's expression tightened with quiet desperation, as if every second of humiliation was another weight added to his already breaking back. What no one in that lobby knew was that this man, Elias Mercer, was not just another struggling single father. And what no one realized yet was that the hotel itself, the entire empire of glass and gold, was quietly connected to him in a way that would soon shatter every assumption they held about power and worth. If this story touches your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. The tension escalated quickly. One of the security guards stepped forward, not aggressively at first, but with the confidence of someone used to obeyed orders. He asked Elias to step aside for the comfort of other guests. The words were polite, but the meaning was not. Elias adjusted his grip on his son, feeling the sting of embarrassment rise in his chest, though he refused to let it reach his face. He had learned long ago that pride could be both a shield and a weapon, and today he needed both. The receptionist finally spoke again, her tone clipped and practiced. She mentioned policy, availability, and discretion, all carefully chosen words that disguised rejection as professionalism. Elias reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded confirmation email, and placed it gently on the counter. The receptionist glanced at it, then frowned, then glanced again, as though the document itself was refusing to make sense. A small silence spread through the lobby, uncomfortable and uncertain, but instead of softening, the staff's suspicion only deepened. The hotel manager, a man named Conrad Halstead, appeared from the side entrance moments later. He carried himself with polished authority, the kind that came from years of being obeyed without question. He didn't ask Elias what was wrong, he assessed him like a problem that had already been solved incorrectly. His eyes flicked to the child, then to the suitcase, then back to Elias with subtle dismissal. Whatever hesitation had existed in the staff now disappeared completely. Conrad quietly instructed security to escort the man out before he disturbed the guests any further. The words hit harder than any physical force. Elias felt something inside him go still, not from shock, but from recognition. He had seen this kind of dismissal before, in boardrooms disguised as kindness, in smiles that ended conversations before they began. But what made this moment different was the sleeping child in his arms, completely unaware that his father was being treated like a mistake that needed removal. The guards moved in closer. Elias exhaled slowly, looking down at his son for a moment, as if anchoring himself in something pure before the world tried to strip everything else away. Then, without raising his voice or resisting, he simply nodded and stepped back toward the entrance. The ease of his compliance unsettled Conrad more than defiance would have. There was something in Elias' silence that felt less like surrender and more like observation. Outside, the city moved on as if nothing had happened. Cars passed, people walked, sunlight continued to spill across the pavement without concern for human humiliation. Elias stood just beyond the hotel entrance, gently adjusting the blanket around his son. His hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from restraint. He pulled out his phone, made a single call, and spoke only a few words before ending it. Inside the hotel, life resumed its polished rhythm. But a subtle tension lingered, like a note held too long in music. The receptionist replayed the interaction in her mind. One of the guards felt uneasy without knowing why. Conrad dismissed it as overthinking and returned to his duties, convinced he had handled an inconvenient situation correctly. By midday, the atmosphere shifted again. This time, it was not subtle. A convoy of black vehicles arrived at the hotel entrance, doors opening in synchronized silence. Staff members paused mid-task as unfamiliar figures in tailored suits stepped out, scanning the building with quiet precision. The hotel manager was called to the entrance immediately. His confident stride slowed the moment he saw the man at the center of the group. Elias Mercer had returned, but he was no longer just a tired father holding a suitcase. He stood differently now, not louder, not harsher, but unmistakably in command of the space around him. The sleeping child was still in his arms, untouched by the shift in power, still protected from a world that had already failed to recognize his father. The staff from earlier slowly realized what was unfolding, though disbelief fought against understanding. Conrad approached, attempting to recover control of the situation, offering rehearsed apologies and explanations about misunderstandings. But Elias did not raise his voice. He simply looked at him with calm, steady eyes and asked to see the staff records, the guest policies, and the incident report from the morning. Each request carried no anger, only clarity. And that clarity was far more unsettling than rage. The receptionist from earlier stood frozen near the counter, her hands trembling slightly as she recognized the gravity of what was happening. The security guard who had stepped forward earlier avoided eye contact completely. The weight of realization spread through them slowly, painfully, like truth refusing to remain hidden any longer. Elias had not come to punish. He had come to understand. The hotel, it turned out, was part of a larger network of properties under a holding company. He quietly controlled ownership structures buried deep in legal layers that even senior staff rarely thought about. Today was not a planned inspection. It was a personal visit, one Elias had chosen to make alone, without announcing his identity, to see how people behaved when they believed no consequence stood behind kindness or cruelty. What he had witnessed had already answered questions he never wanted to ask. Inside the conference room, sunlight streamed through tall windows as Elias finally set his suitcase down and gently adjusted his son in a nearby chair. The room was silent except for the soft hum of distant air conditioning. Conrad stood rigidly across from him, no longer speaking unless spoken to. The power dynamic had reversed completely, not through force, but through truth revealed at the right moment. Elias finally broke the silence. His voice was steady, not filled with anger, but with something heavier, disappointment shaped by understanding. He spoke about dignity, about how quickly people decide worth based on appearance, about how easily systems trained for luxury forget the humanity that sustains them. He didn't demand firings or dramatic consequences. Instead, he asked for reflection, accountability, and training that might prevent another father from being treated like he had been treated that morning. The staff changes that followed were not immediate punishment, but structured correction. Some were removed from their positions, not out of revenge, but because they could not accept responsibility for what they had done. Others stayed and began a difficult process of rebuilding how they saw the people who walked through their doors. Days later, Elias returned once more, this time not as an invisible observer or a commanding figure, but simply as a father. The hotel staff greeted him differently now, not with fear or exaggerated respect, but with cautious humility and genuine awareness. The receptionist who had first dismissed him approached quietly and apologized without excuse or justification. Elias accepted it without hesitation. His son woke briefly in his arms that day, smiling faintly before falling back asleep. And in that small, ordinary moment, the entire weight of wealth, power, and humiliation seemed to dissolve into something simpler: presence, forgiveness, and the quiet rebuilding of trust between strangers who had once misunderstood each other completely. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. And in the comments, share what you believe is the most important lesson from treating every person with dignity, no matter how they appear at first glance.